March 5th, 2024 regular board meeting is called to order. And all directors are present, both student advisors are present. So thank you for being here. Would you join me in the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the agenda before you for the March 5th, 2024 regular school board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the March 5th, 2024 regular school board meeting? It was moved by Director King,
Second.
seconded by Director Evans. All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? No. The agenda has been approved. The board has had the opportunity to review the February 20th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the February 2024 regular board meeting?
So moved.
It was moved by Director Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Director Evans. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The minutes have been approved. In accordance with our board policy 2010, we need an election for our interim legislative rep because our policy we adopted last meeting says in December of even number of years, we will elect our legislative rep for a 2-year term. Are there any nominations for interim legislative representative?
I'll nominate Charlotte Murray.
Second that.
And that was seconded by Director King. Accept your nomination.
I do.
Are there any further nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Okay, it has been moved and seconded to elect Director Murray as our interim legislative rep until the first meeting in December. And we'll have a roll call vote. Director King?
Yes.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. Director Murray? Or Director Evans?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So congratulations, and you will continue as our legislative representative until December when we reorganize again. All right, congratulations. We'll now transition to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. As always, we will begin with the reading of our donations by our student representatives.
The Stanwood-Camano School District received the following donations: $548.58 in school rebates from Firefly Images for Twin City Elementary School.
$1,000 from the Stanwood-Camano Area Foundation through a grant received by the Remax Community Chess Grant to cover the cost of the Amplified Core Knowledge Language Arts supplemental books for Twin City Elementary School.
$100 from Conan Lucy in support of the Stanwood High School Choir.
Wonderful, thank you. And just for information for the rest of the board, we do send out thank you letters that are formal letters from our board president, myself, thanking those that donated. So we're grateful for that. Our second item is a school report to the board. So we have Principal Pike here from Church Creek campus. You will notice that there is no shining star because we do those in the evenings. So we will double up the shining star at an evening meeting. So Principal Pike.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm here to give the school report for Church Creek campus, which houses Saratoga School, Lincoln Hill High School, and Lincoln Academy. I always like to start off with our district promise that every student in the Stanwood-Camano School District is empowered to learn in an inclusive setting and is prepared for the future of their choice. And the presentation is going to be focused on our district strategic plan around goals and measures, that foundational early learning for every student, responsible, engaged, critical thinkers, continuous opportunity for growth and achievement for every student, and future-ready graduates. So I'd like to first start off with highlighting some of the highlights from our Saratoga Annual Action Progress Report for our goals. And for math goals, we are focused on our students being able to gain confidence and proficiency in number sense. In literacy, our students will become more proficient and confident writers at their grade level. And for our multi-tiered systems of support goals, students will become strong and confident learners. And in partnership with our families, be empowered to teach their children at home and partner with our teachers to ensure that students are prepared for the next steps in their educational experiences. Highlights from our Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School. Oh, sorry.
There seemed to be a hum in the sound systems.
Feedback.
Oh, I don't know.
We're working on it.
But, okay, but I really appreciate the subtitles, I just want to say. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
It's
that's
just
okay.
hard to hear.
Yeah. So our highlights in Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School. Our math goal there is that students will be able to demonstrate and explain mathematical operations and comparisons applied to real world applications in their lives. In literacy, students will be able to organize and present ideas effectively, to write extended responses to a prompt. And for our multi-tier systems and support, students will be able to independently select and successfully utilize academic supports established by the school. And so we want them to be able to do that with fewer adult supports. So our plan for progress monitoring of our goals, as you noticed that Saratoga, Lincoln Academy, and Lincoln Hill High School had similar goals this year in literacy around writing. And as stated before, the goals are up there on the PowerPoint. But we chose these goals because looking at state and also school data, it revealed that students needed additional support in organizing their ideas and elaborating on their writing. So we chose both schools independently, settled on those goals to support students. So the way that we've been progress monitoring our students' writing this year is we've been collecting writing samples. And so we've already collected winter writing samples from students at Saratoga, Lincoln Academy, and Lincoln Hill High School. And we've formatively assessed those writings with state and local rubrics. For students in third grade and higher, we've used state adopted rubrics from the Smarter Balance to actually see where we can see strength in students' writing as well as areas for improvement. And at the lower grades, we've had developed rubrics with teachers' collaboration around the standards to evaluate. So the data shows that at Saratoga and Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School, that first bullet point is very similar, that students needed additional support in writing. Well, actually, for Saratoga, the students needed additional support in writing introductions and conclusions for the writing. And in grades 6 through 8 at Saratoga, there was a lack of evidence that was shown connected back to their topic. And students needed additional support in elaborating on their topic. And at Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School, students needed additional support in organizing their writing with a clear topic, progression of ideas from beginning to end. And students needed support in citing supporting evidence as well on their topic in their writing. So our next steps in addressing this has been around at Saratoga, organizing student ideas and thoughts to create clear and concise writing that effectively conveys the readers and their ideas. And that's lessons that have been being taught in the classroom and the use of graphic organizers that have been used in the classroom and also sent home to parents to have partnership with their writing. There's been lessons in the classroom to support introductions and conclusions to strengthen those, and then increase writing instruction at home with the support of teachers. At Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School, there's been lessons on organizing students' ideas and thoughts to create clear and concise writing that effectively conveys to readers that their ideas. Again, using graphic organizers is what we're going to be implementing in our future lessons there as well. integrating evidence from source materials into the writing. So focus on making sure that they have sources included into the writing and that it makes sense. And then reviewing and evaluating released student writing samples from the state. We've done lessons around that as well. Are there any questions? Yes.
You mentioned MTSS. Tell me more about that. Explain more how you're doing that, what you do for different populations.
Yeah, so multi-tiered systems and support. So really it's about what the students' need are and supporting that. So looking at our writing, so looking at it as a whole. Let me go back to the one slide because I don't have all of here. So students becoming strong and confident learners. Working with the parents, each student has worked with the parents' curriculum that actually meets their specific needs. And so working with the teacher, working with specific curriculums to adjust and pace their learning accordingly, and also to give them the right direction for their education. So that's done at Saratoga with a parent and teacher partnership and looking at the curriculum.
Also applied to the other schools too, Lincoln Academy.
Not so much, so the curriculum there is a little bit different. Saratoga with the home partnership is different than Lincoln Academy and Lincoln Hill High School. So what we're doing right now with our goals, independently select successful academic supports. We've implemented across the building unstuck strategies, so to speak, where if students are working in their classroom, but they're stuck on something, what kinds of supports and what kinds of things can they do in order to get unstuck? And so using that more without teacher guidance, but having students take more of that independent advocacy for their own learning, and then supporting them through that.
Any other questions?
Just a reminder to lean into your microphone when you ask questions or make comments.
Can you just touch on what writing graphic organizers are exactly?
Yeah. So at Lincoln Hill High School and Lincoln Academy and at Saratoga, we looked at what the rubric for writing were asking for students to do. And then we developed, I can't show you right now, but it's basically boxes that encompass the writing components that are needed for students to have a strong writing piece. And so they can actually have some guidance while they're pre-writing before they actually write.
So it kind of looks like a rubric a little bit, maybe.
It's more like a fillable template.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes.
Ryan, I just want to thank you for that very thorough and thoughtful report.
Yeah,
It was really good and enlightening.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Principal Pike? All right, Mr. Pike said it very quickly, but but he mentioned the interim assessments. And so the state provides sort of short sample tests that are similar to the state assessment for schools to use should they choose. And not all of our schools have utilized that structure yet. And I think it's beginning to be really useful at Church Creek campus. And so it's something that we hope to kind of grow and share, because it helps students and teachers get a flavor of the level of demand at the state on the state test and align what we do in the classrooms to that same level of difficulty. Because sometimes there's a gap there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we look forward to your shining star later.
Yes.
And if you need to go back to school, we understand. All right, we'll transition to our January financial report with Ruth Sloan.
Good afternoon. I'd like to share with you our monthly financial report for January of 2024. This is the 5th month of the fiscal year, and enrollment was 4,644, approximately 20 FTE under budget. That was mostly at the elementary grade levels. State apportionment revenues were paid at 8.5%, and payroll costs as a percent of budget through January are about what they were this time last year at 41%. And then, our non-employee costs, so what we call MSOCs we're at about between 30 and 31%, which is, spending ahead of where we were last year when we were in the mode of, every dollar counts and some reductions last year. January fund balance on page 3 is at 6.5 million. This is about, prior page. Thank you. Manager's report, yes, thank you. Reflects 10% remaining after expenditures and encumbrances, and that includes salaries, the encumbrances include salaries and purchase orders. This is a lower percent than last year, funds remaining. And then, page 3 fund balance, thank you, is at 6.5 million. About $1 million lower than December, but this is a typical decline. You'll see it similar to prior years. What happens is fund balance decreases as during the early spring, late winter, early spring, and then our tax revenues, our levy funds come in the spring, and that will pop that fund balance back up. But we do anticipate the next couple of months to decline as is normal until April. And then spring tax collections, let's see, object summary is a different way of categorizing our general fund expenditures. You've seen this before. It separates the salaries, benefits, and then those non-employee costs as well. And we give you budget status reports, which is a requirement by the state that you get budget status reports for every fund. General fund we've been through, it shows that $6.5 million ending fund balance for January. And then capital projects on pages 7 and 8 reflects project payments made in January for the projects that we're working on, boilers and other projects, capital fund. And then debt service fund includes January tax collections. We had made our principal and interest payment in December, so this just reflects some revenues in the form of tax collections. And then ASB and transportation vehicle fund, they're both pretty flat this time of year. So just a little bit of change there in ASB and transportation vehicle fund. And then our budget capacity, you'll see that there were some adjustments moving additional budget into student support advocate grant because we did get a federal grant for that program. We also made an insurance adjustment and that will be reimbursed by the risk pool. And you will most likely see additional costs coming through for those large insurance claims that we did. And then food services report shows revenues and expenditures for January. We are ahead of where we expected to be this time of year based on budget, and which is good. And then our average daily participation also is ahead of where we were last year, which revenues and expenditures go hand in hand with those average daily participation, the number of meals that we serve. And what's good though also is that we're ahead of where we were last year as well. And that is the last page of the financial report. I am happy to answer any questions.
It's good to see the lunch participation up so
Yeah.
high. It's like that's really fantastic to see. I think for the kiddos are getting included.
Yes. Yes. All right, thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And just a reminder, these reports are linked to our school board agendas, which are on our main website. If you click on the school board tab, it will carry you over to these agendas, and all of these items are publicly available. The last item today in the superintendent's report is a document that you've received previously, as usual, but it's just a summary, an executive summary of the the levy, and you can see that there's some key findings, additional notes, et cetera, as we move through the document. Really, I think we're focusing right now on the outcome, which was, we're gonna round that up to 60%, so grateful to our community. And I think if we look at the very bottom, just noting the two areas, what can we improve upon and what have we learned? One of the things that really stood out was the importance of helping our community, and when I say that, I include our school communities in that, and even our students to some degree, understanding how school budgets and levies work. So really focusing on a learning campaign more than anything else, hoping to increase voter participation, not only in this election, but in all elections. It's an important right and opportunity that we have. And then lastly, in that last section, you can see a couple of takeaways. We know, and it was affirmed, that nobody likes being told what to do. So again, that kind of reiterates that we were not in a phase of telling folks what's right or what's wrong, but more of this is how levies work, and this is where those dollars go to. And then lastly, that second bullet point, we really learned that during the winter, folks aren't super interested in leaving their home in the evening time. And so we live streamed all of our presentations, and we had a high turnout rate in terms of watching afterwards, but not a lot of folks that showed up. So we intend to continue live streaming any district event that we possibly can so that we can engage the community, not only during the time that the event is taking place, but afterwards. So that was a takeaway that certainly goes well beyond just the levy.
And those are recorded and available for the watch after the fact too.
They are, yes. Yes, thank you for that. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. It's time for the consent agenda. Board members, are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like to pull and discuss? Hearing none. Is there anyone in the audience in person or virtually online who would like to speak to those items on the consent agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6?
We'll move.
That's moved by Director Evans,
Second.
seconded by Director Murray. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The consent agenda has been approved. Okay. Public comment. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meeting. This time is set aside for members of the public to address the board on any topic within the scope of the board's responsibility. The board does not respond to questions or comments during the public comment period, and the board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's comment. Are there any comments? Okay, and none online? All right. We'll move down to topics for school board discussion. And we have 1, our book studies. I will turn that over to our superintendent. This is the last chapter of the book, probably the best one.
That's right, that's right. It's the last chapter. So the chapter 6 is titled Intentional Interruption, the title of the book. And what we have typically done is kind of have the board share something that stood out to them. And I thought if the board doesn't mind, I might kick off by sharing mine, if that's okay. One of the big takeaways from this chapter that stood out to me that I kind of went back to over and over again was the comment. It's somewhere around page 69 and 70. It advises leaders to don't waste energy on what you can't but really want to control. And it just, kind of goes through that evolution of as a leader prioritizing what are your high leverage moves and where are the areas in your leadership where you do have influence and leading in there versus those things that maybe just drive you bonkers but live outside your scope. So those are the things you worry about at home at night. But it was just a good reminder that there are ways to focus on the good work that we do and focusing kind of on impact in the schools versus maybe perseverating on those things we cannot control as much. So I will pass it on to President Trevor.
Okay. You have a lot more highlighting in your books than I do, but I could relate to that last chapter when you were talking about tools. Comments, we start down at the end there, Director King.
I was hoping the rest of you would comment first.
All right, we'll start with Director Bird.
So my observation of chapter 6 actually was kind of humorous in a way, because I actually, as I was reading through all of the different ways that we can intentionally interrupt, I was recognizing that in conversations and the leadership that has within our district, especially with our superintendent. I recognize now those intentional interruptions and trying to teach us all new things. So I appreciate that you really take this to heart, and I think it makes us a better school district.
I used to get in trouble a lot as a child for interrupting, by the way.
Director.
Funny that Dr. Rumbach had mentioned that particular statement, because that is also what I highlighted was, you recognize you can't control it, but you still put a significant time and energy towards thinking about how much you wish you could. And they call that an activity trap. And I just think, like, how many hours of a day are spent wasted, like, oh man, if only, if I could, like, that's definitely not productive. The other thing that I sort of noted, and I've said this in board meetings a few times, is on page 74, they talk about the connection between observations and interpretations and how it's crucial, because you have to describe something so that people make sure they understand what everyone means when they use terms like descriptive. Like, I've said this before, my definition of something might not be your definition of something, and clearly defining what you're saying, make sure that you're all on the same page. And I think a lot of people miss that step in conversation, right? You assume that you say feedback and you think the same thing that I think, and that's not always the case, right? So I think that was one of the things that stuck out to me. And again, in their thing, I agree with it, so I highlighted it, right? So I appreciated that.
Director Foster.
I have to concur with Deborah. That was poignant and topical, so thank you for that.
And also the two things I remember having forgotten to review, that I read a few weeks ago, were the same point too, about, and that's not just for the school systems, it's for me personally, is look at what's possible and doable versus what I like to do, but not waste time on the other things. And then the other point was Miranda's about definitions, the importance of what is meant by specific words, including policies.
Okay, and I know we gave copies of the books to our student advisors. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to make any comments on it.
I really like how you and Dr. Rumbach talked about, just like the importance of realizing what's going on, and just like, let me take it back. Recently, I've been just like so worried about what's going on in our school community and the world, and I've just been so focused on all of that, and just like, it's a lot to think about. You can't take on the whole world as this one student or as one person, and I think it's just really good to remember that you need a whole community to do that. And I think reading this book, it's just like really shows you that you can't do something by yourself, and you need those people to go through and interrupt things. And like at ASB camp, we learned something that's called like a disruptor, and it's someone who goes in leadership positions and they disrupt things, and it really helps a group grow. And I think this book really amplifies it and really just speaks to it a lot, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, great. Great.
Thank you. And now we will with you.
Lee, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
But now we will move on to the student advisory reports, and let Bee tell us about
Hi, I'm Bee, and I'm the Lincoln Hill High School student representative. And this month we are putting up decorations like 4-leaf clovers and stuff, and including what we are lucky to have or why we are lucky because and stuff like that. And we wanted to do this to spread more positivity through our schools. We have many things to be grateful for, but we might not realize when we're stuck in a rut. And we are also having a student council meeting, Friday the 7th. This is where ASB officers and the leadership advisor uses time to discuss important topics like special events. Student representatives from each grade show up and participate in these discussions, and we talk about what things we do for Spirit Week or what we're doing for dances. And session 5 ends today, which is like a grading session for our school. And I want to also mention that the staff scholarships are due on March 11th. And that was the end of my report. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Grace Pacheco. I serve as a student representative of Stanwood High School, and I serve as a member on our student government team. Here's what we've been focusing on in our upcoming events. As an ASB executive board, we have all had a discussion about how our class will run best. We have came to the conclusion that it's best to split up into 5 different committees, including our campus culture committee. This committee is taking the lead on our annual Care Week that will take place the week of April 22nd. Each day will have a small uplifting morning reading as well as a lunchtime activity. At the end of the week on April 26th, we will be hosting our student-run thrift event called Thriftwood. Our activities committee, the activities committee is working on finding a date for our SHS talent show this year, as well as our Spartan Olympics that will take place the whole month of May and end on the 31st. During the Spartan Olympics, every sport except for cross country and competitive club will be competing for prizes. Our advertising committee, they're working on hosting a middle school leadership camp at Stanwood High School and working on promotional materials to uplift the campus. They're also working on making posters for our Care Week. The poster goal this year is over 80 posters. Our clubs and sports committee, are accumulating a plan for pen pals with our elementary schools, taking lead on creating a brand new student senate. Their plan is to finalize the agenda 2 weeks prior to the meeting. I have a new workspace for our meetings, as well as having discussion questions for everyone who attends. They also took a lead on our winter formal that was a huge success. And lastly, our assemblies committee. Our assemblies committee is working on a pep assembly in March. During this assembly, we will have the reptile man from Monroe come down to perform for us. There will be 2 separate assemblies, as well as our ASB election assembly the last week of April and our class election assembly that will be March 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. And I missed item number 2 on our discussion, which is the first reading on board policy 5221. And our legal counsel has recommended that we don't need this because it is addressed by all other board policies and our collective bargaining agreement. So if there's no discussion on this, we will move it on to a second reading on March 19th. And then we can retire it after that. Any comments on board policy 5221? All right, then we have consensus to move that to a second reading. Board directors report on business conducted, and start in the middle with Director Evans.
All right. Let's see, board director reports on business conducted. I had the opportunity to go with our 4th grade classes over to the Stanwood tribe a few weeks ago and experience their sort of half-day field trip, learning about the Stanwood ways and things like that. It was a really fun experience. We sang on drums and we danced and we sang and we colored, and it was all super informative. The kids had a really great time. I was able to meet the liaison over at the Stanwood tribe while I was there. Really super great guy, super positive and excited to build a relationship with the Stanwood-Camano School District. So I thought that was really great. It's one of my favorite things that I did. Thank you.
Director Boston.
Okay. I made some notes here. I, met with Ruth, Floyd, and Deborah, and we talked about budgets and policies, and that was enlightening. I look forward to more of those, hopefully. I also went to a CBAC meeting with Dr. Deborah, and that was enlightening, and I met many more people from the community that had information rich, I will say. Anyway, I knew a lot of stuff. I went to the city council meeting to see what was going on there, and there's a lot going on. If you're into that sort of thing, but they're putting in 500 and roughly, they're suggesting over 500 apartments and townhomes across from Hagen's. And, you know, as you can imagine, there's, you know, a fruit basket upset because some people don't want it, some people want it. So that's all in the works and going on in the community. I also had lunch with the operations manager of the food bank, and we talked about how we can help generate more interest and activity in the backpack lunch program. So, and lastly, I volunteered at the Unsalati Elementary School at an art project, and it was very fun. So, and I met people, and it was lovely, and they were painting butterflies, and it was just really neat to feel like a part of it and what was going
What
on.
grade did you get to visit?
I think they were kindergartners.
Oh.
They were pretty
Always
little.
excitable, right? Always
And
excitable.
I bring up the other thing, I'll cry, but I did meet a student that was on a, you know, breathing machine and feeding tube, and he was just like a little miracle. And there he was in the middle of it all, and the other kids are, you know, well adjusted, they can see that this is not a freak, and he gets to be a part of the class. And it was just almost, it was almost spiritual how enlightening it was for me, because it kind of changed my perception of some things. So thank you for that. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Director Murray.
I got to sit in on the opening of our audit, for this year. And so that was informative, and I'm looking forward to seeing how, that goes. We should be seeing some results in that in the next month or so. And, just as a quick little update on the legislative side of things, we're getting ready to wrap up, and the budget is supposed to be coming out. Finally, budget is supposed to be out either later today or tomorrow. So that'll really kind of tie into some of the things that we've talked about, like the MSOC and the special ed percentage allocation. Some of that stuff was in both of those budgets, and we'll have to wait and see what the final outcome, where they came to consensus on that. So hopefully some positive things for our district.
Thank you. And I'll be leaving this evening to go to the Northwest Leadership Seminar in Portland. Also had the opportunity to hear the scholarship help that was presented at the high school with 3 kids graduating this year. And we did the visit to Port Susan Middle School with Director Foster, and a yummy FFA prime rib dinner at the high school. It was a good evening and a fundraiser for them. The entrance conference, and then I did the risk assessment beforehand with our state auditors. We did hear an appeal, and so I'm just thankful for all of the donations that we get from our community, for Principal Mike's presentation today, and all of the staff did on our levy to make that a success there. So good luck to the FFA and those going to the Knowledge Board bowl that we approved in the consent agenda. And if there be,
Don't forget you didn't ask for clarification.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My bad.
Maybe has something to say. A couple of things. One, I had my first meeting on the facilities CCAP committee, and I have a special concern about the quantity of population growth in the Northeast, north of Cedar Home School. Massive quantity up there. You know, I live just above the high school, and my neighbor's kids are being bused to Camano because of that. And so I've been really looking into that, talking to people. I had a conversation as you were driving home with the city administrator about ideas. And so that's one concern I have. And then also tracking what further the new tracks are going in beyond what's already happened. Second thing is I have a special interest in the homeschooling community. And I've learned that there is a very large homeschooling group in Stanwood, about 75 to 100 kids, very few of whom are in any of our schools, including Saratoga. And so I'm starting to research why and what we do about that.
Thank you. And we do have two directors that are on the CBAC committee and two that are on the CFAC committee. And we thank those committees for the work that they're doing. Did I miss anybody else? Great. There being no further business, the March 5th, 2024 regular board meeting is adjourned.